and I had some of those as well. You already know who I am, so we're moving on past that. But the fundamentals of being remote are the fundamentals of being not remote. It does require good management. And here's a quote you can use if you're pushing your boss to stay remote later, which many of you are, I think. Managing a virtual team requires managers to double down on the fundamentals. That's what it is. It just requires that we behave well. We're going to go into some of the things that managers fear, and maybe some individual contributors feel, or people who are working from home feel. Does the lack of everyday nonverbal face-to-face communication, does it diminish you in some fashion or diminish your productivity? Does the lack of social interaction do that? Is there really a lack of social interaction? I've been talking to people and looking at people all day virtually. Lack of trust. Do I trust that you're going to get your work done? Do I trust that I can get my work done? Miscommunications. The written word allows a ton of opportunity for miscommunication. Loss of team spirit, maybe. Productivity, absolutely not. I want to talk about that first because it's so interesting to me that most managers fear a fully remote environment because the traditional American workplace is a command and control sort of environment. Workers are doing good work because they're at their desk with their butts in chairs at 8:30 every morning, and by gum, they stay till 5:30 and they take an hour for lunch. Well, these days you could be BIC, which is what we call it, but in chair, and you could be in India. You could be in the Bahamas, because you can go anywhere on the internet and you can spend a vast amount of time being somewhere else and doing something else. So remote work is really an acknowledgement that just because you are BIC does not mean you're working, not in today's world. So turns out that not a lot of Americans as a whole work remotely, only 5%, but in our industry, 41% work remotely. And then 17% or 11.7% work remotely some of the time. So we're probably better at it than most people, but in my day-to-day meanderings through the virtual world, I can tell you there are a lot of people who are not really good at it. We're going to talk first from the individual side, meaning I'm the remote worker. How do I play nice? And we're going to start here. The rule of thumb at Turnkey, and that has worked really well for us, is if you wouldn't walk into a room and do it, don't do it online. And what I mean by that is, would you walk into a room, turn around, face the wall, or put a bag over your head and start talking to everyone in the room? No, you wouldn't. You would never do that. And yet, we do this all the time. And today, culturally, and it's escalating exponentially in this moment, that's not culturally appropriate anymore to not show your face. It's very disconcerting when there's someone lurking in the room. Often, we'll be on conference calls and there are 3 people who are just a phone number, just hanging out. And I'm like, I feel uncomfortable. I don't like that. I don't know who that is. I don't know, are they engaged with us? Are they even supposed to be on this call? I don't know. So at the end of the day, what we're asking for is simply what we ask for in real life and in on the ground life. Face me, just show me your face. And when you think about communications, there's the old set of data that says you only get 7% of a communication based on the words. With voice, intonation, pace, you get another X%. If I can see your face, I get even more. In the virtual environment, I don't know how tall you are, and I don't know what you smell like. That's pretty much it. If I'm using the tools appropriately, I get the rest of it, and I can form relationships this way. So your environment, again, the individual at home. Think about your background. Think about your backlighting. Is there high contrast? Can people see your face? Don't wear sunglasses, ridiculous things. Just if you were in the room, what would you do? Would you make the person with whom you're speaking more comfortable by not making them stare into direct sunlight? Of course you would. Would you face the wall? Of course you wouldn't. Would you meet out by the garbage dump? No, you wouldn't. You'd meet in a nice place. A green screen on Amazon is $35. It comes with the green screen and stands to stand it up. It's fascinating. You can be anywhere. Make sure your sound is good. And you know what? Your dogs, your kid, your UPS guy, they are going to show up. And particularly today, it's okay. It's fine. Just make apologies if you know something's going to happen. Or if you don't, make apologies when it does. Excuse yourself, go fix it, and then come back. Because we've all seen the video of the guy in the UK who was on a news broadcast whose kid came in the room and he's doing this. It would have been better just stop and say, I'll be right back. Go take care of it, come back. Because that's real life. So what's the remote worker's responsibility? When we went remote 14 months ago, this was something we really had to work out. We had to decide who's responsible for the internet. And what we decided is that internet is like water and heat. That is your responsibility as a remote worker, for you to have it, to make sure it's good. If yours goes down, go to a neighbor, go wherever you gotta go, but that's your responsibility. Understanding how to use the communications device, whether it's Zoom, which we like, GoToMeeting, Google Hangout. There are so many with so many great functions. But the thing is, you can't just wait till the meeting to learn. You got to download it, you got to practice it, turn it on, make sure you understand what the buttons do, what they mean. Practice with a friend if you're able to do that. One of the big parts of working remote is it is really easy to never stop working because it's right there. And that is in contrast to what many managers believe is going to happen. In a command and control environment, workers are not as productive because they feel forced to work. But when you're at home and you're not forced to work, you work because you want to, and work is more enjoyable, and you end up doing more of it. So establishing boundaries for when you are off or when you need to stop is really important. And then last, you would think being at home, you'd be washing clothes, you'd be doing all kinds of things. It turns out, at least in our experience, it is really easy to never get up. Never. So get up, move around. When in the meeting, I can't see you all right now. And that's kind of the way we've been trained that this works. But in fact, when you're in an actual virtual meeting instead of the webinar setting, they can see you. And often I find that people forget that. They forget they can be seen. They forget that when they start typing, everybody can hear you. So, not only are you not paying attention, but you are distracting everyone else with your typing. So things like that. If you're taking notes, just say, hey, I've taken some notes here. If I look down, that's what I'm doing. Just so the person doesn't think that you're doing this. I'm just going to be texting my grandma right now, but I'm listening. I'm listening for real. So position your screen so you're looking at the camera, which I'm doing right now. Can't see your face. And one of the things that we've realized is that if your face is part of what you're looking at, it is like so impossible not to look at yourself. And if your face is the one down there in the corner and you're like looking adoringly at yourself the whole time, God, I look good. Am I getting a pimple? I don't know. Instead of listening, hide your self view because you are ultimately distracting to yourself. Put your correct name on the screen. Usually most of the platforms have a place where you can put your name, or you can go in and change everybody else's name, which is great fun. I highly recommend that you try it. And so that you have your name tag on, so to speak. And then when you enter a room, say hi, introduce yourself. If you're hosting the meeting, make sure that everyone is appropriately welcomed and introduced when they get there. So this is a picture of a webinar done in my business this week. And this is like full badness. So what we've got here, we got 4 heads. We got another 4 people in a conference room. I've got 2 people who don't want me to see their face. And then 1 person, I don't know who that is. I'm a little freaked out, right? So what we say is 1 head, 1 screen. 1 head, 1 screen. Before we went remote, I would actually send people back to their offices because they wanted to gather in a conference room to talk to the client. And we noticed the client is like coming in, trying to figure out who said that. It's impossible. Put everybody on a level playing field, 1 head, 1 screen. Everybody has the same vocal opportunity that way, and it works super well. I will say one thing about when you're the one who set the meeting, you are technically the host. And when you get a lot of people, it can become a little fraught. What I recommend is that if you're the host, establish culturally right at the beginning, if it's a group conversation, you don't speak unless the host calls on you. So in our environments, we'll actually just hold up our hand until the host acknowledges us. I see you, without saying anything, and then they call on you in the order in which your hand was raised. That seems a little stilted. It works really well. Our director of ops runs a morning meeting every day. I'll talk a little more about, and I see her as people raise their hand. They know that she saw them. They know they're going to speak, and we don't end up talking over each other, which is really good. Tools. If you have any questions on any of this, pop them in the Q&A, and I'm happy to answer them to the best of my ability. I'm a professional peer-to-peer fundraiser, not a professional remote worker, but we figured this is what we can offer today. So we're going to tell you what we know. So a project management tool. One of the things about working remotely from a group perspective is that you are required as a group to make your work transparent. And what that does is a few things. It makes you pretty darn efficient in terms of communicating with each other. It relieves the anxiety of your former command and control boss because they can see the work. They are reassured. They don't have to come chase you down and understand what you're doing because you're communicating within the project management tool. There are lots of them. We use Team Gantt because we needed time tracking and it had that particular functionality. Asana, Slack, Basecamp, there's so many out there with so many great functions to meet your needs. We started with one and then we moved. It wasn't that big a deal. One of the things that we also found that we can do is, particularly in a production environment, projects can be really complex. We have one project right now that has 1,000 different tasks. What we found is that most of the platforms allows you to create those projects in Excel, which is a lot easier to work with then, and then upload it into the project management tool, which is a huge shortcut in terms of getting the projects online and getting everyone assigned to their piece of the work and able to see everybody else's piece of the work. That's probably the thing I'm most proud of Turnkey about, is that we really embraced that. We brought the project management tool online. We gave our clients access to it. To be frank, do they ever go in? Almost never. But it gives them this real peace of mind knowing that they can. It's strange, right? Of course, you're going to need Outlook or other calendars, just like when you interact with people in your office. Before you call them on the phone, you check to see if they're free. Same, right? And then, of course, you'll have your job-specific software in the cloud. So this is just a screenshot of what we use and what it looks like. And as you can see, there are people who are assigned to the work. There's another view of this that gives you a Gantt chart. Actually, that's it over here. And then you can also see the due dates, what's overdue, what's coming up, that sort of thing. And one of the big transitions for us when we moved to a remote environment is we realized that we were doing a lot of work that was not in support of our strategic plan. We were going, okay, it's my fault. For real, I'm the CEO, and I would say, ooh, squirrel. And suddenly there's a project in there and it says, ooh, squirrel, CEO saw a squirrel, let's make a project. When in fact, it didn't align with our strategic plan. When we went to a project management tool, and I think I know my own failings because I was the one who insisted, if it doesn't align with our strategic plan, should it be a project? Should we even be doing it? At which point most of my staff looked at me and said, does she not know? Does she not know? It's her? Well, anyway, it worked out fine, and they killed a lot of my projects, and I got over it. But this was a great way to make sure that our work was aligned with our strategic plan as we went forward. And then Poppins, just like any other office, you can pop in on a virtual meeting platform. And Zoom, it's super easy. You pull up everybody who's part of your account. You can see if they're free. You can see if they're online or offline, and you can send them an invite right there. And it literally rings on their telephone, on their computer screen, as if it's a telephone, as if you're knocking. They can decline or they can accept. Immediately the camera comes on. It's as if they opened the door and said, oh yeah, what's up? And then you ask them your question. Again, just like in real life, you make sure they don't have somebody in their room with them already. So very unexpected outcomes for us. We feared going remote because we thought, what if we lose connection? We had all the fears I talked about in the beginning. We had all those fears. But what we found was that instead of that, we got a lot closer. And I'll describe some of the techniques that we used to do that. The other thing we found, this is for managers. Somebody brought me food. Yes. Thank you, darling. So what we found is that PTO use went down. And that's something to think about, because about halfway through the year, we noticed that people were not using PTO the way they had. And what happened was that, prior to us going remote, if you needed to be home for a contractor, you took a half day. Now you just open the door, right? You don't need to take a half day. So that was an unexpected positive outcome, but we did have to go in and tell people, you've got to take PTO on a regular basis instead of letting it clump to the end of the year. They didn't even know they were doing it. And it was really rather amazing. So I said we got closer. We got closer because we did this. So every morning, rain or shine, we ask one stupid question and everybody talks. So this is almost everybody in my company. And Stacy in the upper left-hand corner, who's our VP of operations, she brings us all together at 8:30 in the morning, and God bless the people on the West Coast. We don't make it a requirement, but they come in. This person's in California, this person's in Colorado. They show up almost every morning. George's dog was biting his ear at this moment, which is why he's off screen, but he came right back because that's the way it works, right? The morning gathering, which is what we call it, is every morning. We allot a half an hour for it. Typically, it takes about 12 minutes. What happens is Stacy comes on, she's like, good morning. She's the best radio broadcaster in the world. And she says things like, or asks questions like, what's your favorite smell? And the goal simply is to have everyone speak. And what it's turned into is this cultural thing for us that gets us really close to each other. I know things about people I never knew, like what's your dream vacation? What scares you more than anything else in the world? What's your favorite beverage, 5 o'clock on a Friday? All these things about people that you just don't get to find out. And of course, I kept a list all year, and Christmas time, when we all got together in real time in the same space, they all had Christmas presents, pretty much exactly what they wanted, or that said something about them, which was really cool. We thought we would do this for a month when we first went virtual, and what we found was we can't stop doing it. This is how we stay connected. One stupid question is how we stay connected. Does work happen on this call? Only at the end. At minute 12 or 13, usually we're done, unless it's a really, often, once in 10 or 20, these will become very emotional. Like, what's the most afraid you've been in your life? And a question like that came up recently, and we started talking about, who we were afraid for. Our elderly, we were afraid for them. Some of our client populations were afraid for them. So in those cases, it can take a little longer, but typically it's a, yes, I smoked pot at 16, that was the only time kind of question. So, you learn a lot. At the end of this morning gathering, sometimes small groups will split off for their own little pull-ups, but it's upon request. It's not set in stone. And we find that we just clear out a lot of stuff on this meeting. We connect to each other, we clear it out. One of the things that you'll notice on this is that nobody's driving, and we had to make that and really pound it in, because it seemed like everybody wanted to be in their car, taking their kid to or from school during the morning gathering. So now we've established a culture that can't happen. You pull over. No, you can't just listen. That's not good enough. You pull over and you're part of the group and you're safe. So that's about it. This is what we've done at Turnkey. I hope that it's helpful. I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss anything. And I don't think that we did. One thing that we did, which I would also recommend, is that we, during this period of time, have allowed our employees to use this tool to contact our families so that they can establish connections with their families as well. And I had no idea that it would be so meaningful to make that offer. And, I'd love to say it's skin off my butt, but it's not, because we already own it. We have a pro version, so it didn't hurt us to let everybody, set up a family meeting in the off hours using our account. And it was really very much appreciated by them. So Lillian has a question. Did you find that employees were working through being sick instead of taking a sick day? Yes, we did. Yes, we did. There is something about people when you put them in control of their own autonomy, they work harder. And so, yeah, we have to say, I can tell you're sick, I can see that you're sick, you need to go to bed. And so we'll push them to take care of themselves. But yes, we did find that's true. All right, any other questions for anyone? I am excited. This is a new world order. I think that we're learning some things, and our world is going to change in ways that it's never going to go back. So let's get good at this. We can build a community this way. We have built a community this way at Turnkey, and I hope the same for you. Be healthy, be safe. I don't see any questions. Let's all go have dinner. All right, bye. Kelly?
Thanks, everyone. We just want to let you know that we, at the same website where you registered for this webinar, we have recordings from webinars we did on Monday about how to continue to fundraise during a national crisis like we are right now, when it may seem crass to fundraise. We also are going to have 2 webinars on Friday around whether or not you should postpone your spring peer-to-peer fundraising events or go virtual. We're going to have some expert advice on that. Someone's asking to see my face.
An anonymous attendee. Put your name in there. Put your name in there. All right, Kelly, you got to come on screen. You got to do it. You got called up.
Uh-oh. Well, I just got in from a run, so here I am. the voice of God.
There you go. There you go. You guys have been great. I talked fast that, oh, I didn't see the questions. Did we get them all? Were we good?
I think Barbara, we have one more question from Barbara, who is saying, will you be discussing remote work from the manager standpoint?
Well, I did a little bit, but I'd be happy to talk more about that. The main thing I would say is that it didn't work out like we thought it would. We were worried. And interestingly, too, at the moment that we did this, we had a different operations person who was very, very much a command and control sort of person. And they were convinced that, everything's going to go to hell. They're not going to do their work. And we just found exactly the opposite. We really have to force people to stop working instead of working. From a management perspective, staying in contact is really important. Getting to, setting up pull-ups with people that are frequent. They don't, for example, the guy who handles our website, I have a pull-up every week with him right now because we have constantly changing materials. It usually lasts like 5 to 15 minutes and then we're out, but that time is allotted for him, and it's a signal of respect for his work, and it's also gives him what he needs in terms of access to me. Kelly and I, we have a pull-up every couple of weeks, I think, right, Kelly? And it goes super fast, but we have to give each other those opportunities to say, here's what's going on. I can't say enough about the project management tool. I found there was far more pushback to the project management tool and to putting every single thing in it than to working remotely and the best practices that we were insisting upon for doing that. The project management tool made many people feel very vulnerable in that we could see their work for the first time. We can see their work better now than when we were in the office, because it has to be transparent. There's no way to work as part of the organism if you're not using the same tool as the rest of the organism. So way more pushback on that than pushback on using virtual tools and doing what we ask in that regard, or even working from home. What has been your experience, from Savannah, with onboarding and integrating new employees? It's been, again, surprisingly good. We've onboarded people in 3 or 4 different states, 3 or 4 different people. And again, I think the onboarding virtually requires a discipline of management that manifests well for the employee. So I can't wing it, right? I have to have my forms squared up. They got to go by email. We're going to look at them on screen. There's just no way that they can show up at the office and not be accommodated, which happened. Having it online just implies a discipline that is better than not. So using onboarding as an example, we have an onboarding project that is templated. So when we hire someone new, we load the project. It makes the assignments to the right people, and all the tasks are in there. And that, again, is part of maintaining discipline to support the strategic plan, in this case, to support successful onboarding. So we have not had trouble with it. Are you going to have a bad apple? I'm sure we're going to hit one. I'm sure we will, just like we would if we were working, inside a traditional office. It's going to happen, but surprisingly, it has been a better experience this way than the other way. So anyway, I wish everyone good. I would be curious of the folks in the audience, what makes you anxious about today and being forced to do this, and the idea of continuing to do this? What are the things that make you anxious? Where are the gaps that you see in your organization's operations that you're going to have to plug something in? Anyone? Either everybody's typing or you guys got this. I love it. All right, I think we're good, Kelly. Here's one. Barbara, challenges of transitioning office workers to a virtual environment. It's been a struggle for one of my staff. We had two people who were, hell no, I won't go kind of people. We transitioned them the last. One of them turned around and did beautifully. I'm not sure exactly why she preferred not to work at home. She actually had a nice home environment to work in, but she preferred a traditional office. Now while she may or may not prefer the traditional office still, she is very successful working from home. We had another employee who did not want to work from home, more because her home environment was not great. She too has transitioned successfully, but I think that environment was what was hard for her. Everybody else did well. Next question from James. Do you do digital processing of mail or have someone go to a PO box? We have one employee who actually does go pick up mail at a PO box. As I said, we still have a warehouse that is in operation, and those employees are still there, and that person picks up the mail and deals with it. She's our CFO person, so that makes sense. And then Savannah said, I'm anxious about mail, printer, supplies, etc. Savannah, are you asking about that from a personal perspective or from a company perspective? Would be my question. And I'll try to answer it both ways just in case. What we found since company. Okay, so in that case, I'm trying to interpret your question. So your company or organization is going to maintain an office, and you're worried about the mail, the printer, the supplies that will be there? Or maybe I can answer it this way. The warehouse functions are pretty much separate from our other functions if we don't have an office space at all. Yes. Somebody, probably the CEO of your organization, is going to have an email server somewhere in their house. That's typically how it works. And a PO box that he or she will assign someone to go check or go check themselves. In terms of supplies, we went virtual 14 months ago. One of the things about virtual is that you really don't print stuff. You figure out other ways to store stuff. I will say the other thing that we did at the same time, and I should have mentioned this, we're on Office 365. We use SharePoint heavily. I am adamantly opposed to versions of documents flying around in emails. So I do my best to kill those and get them into the right folder in SharePoint. If I'm communicating with a client, we'll use OneDrive, which is an external facing document storage portal. Google Drive accomplishes the same thing. But it's really hard to imagine life this way until you live life this way, which you're doing. Congratulations. But it just doesn't, it's different. You don't print, because why would you print it? To show it to someone? No, we don't do that. Why would you print it? To file it? Why would we do that? We can file it online. So it's just it's an entirely different life. And we are finding that we were doing things in a way, if you were doing nothing and then someone tried to sell you, you're going to do it this way or you're going to do it this way, pick A or B. Doing it the old way is just nonsensical when you think about it. We're going to make everybody drive between 10 and 20 miles to get to one place. And then you're going to have conversations that are going to be relatively undocumented, and you're going to print paper that's going to disappear because your filing systems are such that you can't find anything. It's not like you can search on a filing cabinet, right? And then, at the end of the day, after you use electricity, heat, toilet paper, coffee, all that, then you're going to drive 10 to 20 miles back home. Or you could all just, George Jetson communication device in and share common storage facilities and work facilities online. What would you do? And this is a big winner for me, and it has been for us. It dropped about 7% off our operating cost when we went virtual, and increased our employee satisfaction. So, all right, I think that's everybody. All right, Kelly, I think we're good.
I think so too. Thanks everybody for joining us this afternoon, evening.
Yep. Any questions, please feel free to email, and we'll do our best to help and give everybody a hug virtually. Tough times. Thank you, James. Appreciate that. Have a good one.